Good day, everybody, and thank you for joining me in this Gospel of John. We are up to chapter 9 already, believe it or not. Chapter 9. For me, it is the day after Easter, and so I'm in my house because I decided to take the morning off before doing some afternoon activities. But I wanted to record the video, obviously, for Tuesday morning, and so I'm going to welcome you into my home for the time being. And we jump right back into John chapter 9. It's been a little strange journey for me as this Easter, and I know this is a big aside, but we jumped on Thursday from the Gospel of John, and then I did the Gospel of Luke for Friday and Sunday. So jumping between the Gospels has been a bit of a mind shift for me because both Gospels have a very different emphasis, and both Gospels use different language and they focus on different ways. So going back and forth between John and Luke has been a little bit of a journey for me this Easter. And so going back into John after being in Luke for a little bit it is flipping my brain just a little in the post-Easter time period. So, but going back, here we are, chapter 9, and it opens once again very similarly to what we've seen before with healing, right? Jesus is a healer in a lot of John, and going instantly from that healing to now almost a trial of sorts where there's testimony, and the person who is healed is put on trial, and Jesus is put on trial, and there's questioning and there's unbelief. Again, a lot of John, the Gospel of John, is belief, unbelief. Who knows, who doesn't know, who's aware and who isn't aware, who's in the light and who continues to stay in the dark. In this case, we're going to get the word sin thrown in there. Now, it opens with the disciples asking Jesus, who has sinned so that this man is born blind? It is important that you know that at the time, there was this connection between an infirmity, as a sickness, an illness, any type of thing. So if you were deaf, blind, if you had any type of sickness, anything like that, the thought was that this was somehow a punishment by God for your sinfulness, or your parents' sinfulness, or at least 7 generations back of sinfulness. So the idea is that you were not connected to God, or your family was not connected to God, and therefore God was punishing you. If you notice right away, Jesus dismisses that notion, saying this is not what we believe. Essentially, this man has not sinned. This is that disconnect between sinfulness and blindness or deafness. Even though, sadly, there's some that will still proclaim this messed up kind of theology, but Jesus himself says, no, there is no connection between the two. And then Jesus doesn't quite give an answer as to why is this man blind. We all want to know, why do some people die? Why do good people suffer? You know, all those kind of big questions. And Jesus just kind of sidesteps those questions. I said it's about the same exact answer that you get from God in Job, which is kind of a non-answer, but that reminder that while Jesus is present, the light is there, and once Jesus is gone, the darkness overtakes. But we'll hold on to the first part, which is that there is no connection between blindness and sinfulness, and then kind of ignore the second part because we all want to know why, and there is no answer why, which could be the answer. There is no answer to the why question. But the other thing to note is that sinfulness in John, and I think I've said this in the previous video, is not connected to one's morality. It's not whether somebody is good or bad. It is how one responds to a revelation to who Jesus is as God. It's a response to your connection to God. It is all of those. It has nothing to do with morality. That will not show up until much later in the church, but in the Gospels, this is not the notion of what sinfulness is all about. Sinfulness was your connection or disconnection to God. And in the particular case in the Gospel of John, it's your connection or disconnection to the revelation of who Jesus is in terms of God. And that's going to be important in the very next section, another section that was used to be anti-Semitic. Again, think of this notion of your connectedness or your response to the revelation of who Jesus is in God. So the man is healed. If you notice, the signs has been ramping up. So everything gets a little bit bigger, and it's beginning to be a larger and larger group of signs. Again, John doesn't use miracles. I almost said miracles, but John doesn't use the word miracles. It's signs as we build up to Lazarus, which is coming up very soon. But now a man who was born blind gets his sight. And immediately he's questioned, which follows the same pattern. Were you really blind? Are you the guy? So the people begin to notice, and they see, and they know the man, but they can't quite grasp that his blindness is gone. And then the Pharisees walk in, and they start to question the man here. Again, it feels very much like a trial, and so the man is questioned deeply, and the sinfulness of Jesus comes up. We know this man is a sinner because, again, the connection is that he doesn't know God because he keeps claiming to be God. That's the mentality behind here. And they're looking at it as a morality because he has healed on the Sabbath, which you are not supposed to do. But, as I said, John doesn't deal with it that way. Jesus doesn't deal with it that way. And so fast forward when we get to the questioning of Jesus, and he kind of calls the Pharisees blind in the midst of it all, and talks about their sinfulness. What Jesus is doing is flipping the description of what sinfulness is, as they cannot even see God standing in front of them right now. So how can they believe in a sign such as a blind man who has now received sight? How could they even make the connection that God is standing in their midst when they can't see God standing in their midst? So this idea of blindness and who can see and who can't see, all of this and sinfulness is all flipped in this little description. So this blind man who can now see, who gets put on trial by the Pharisees, whose parents are then brought in. I love that. They call the parents in just to make sure that they're his parents and that they're not lying too, and really to test their morality. Are they liars as well? And then they call the man back in, and when they're totally unsatisfied with the answer as to why he can now see, they wanted to catch him either in a lie, saying he could see the whole time and this is all a big setup, or for him to kind of condemn Jesus, saying this was magic and therefore it's not from God. That was the mentality here. They wanted to catch him in some kind of lie so that they can disprove that Jesus is somebody who could give sight to the blind. And when they don't get that answer, and when they can't get that answer, they chase the man away. So the man that was just given sight is now chased out of town by the Pharisees. And that's when Jesus steps back into the picture, right? And begins to talk about their blindness, the Pharisees' blindness. It is a tough passage, not in the way that it's read, but again, it's been used in an anti-Semitic way because Jesus calls them sinful in the midst of this. So the later use of this was that all of Jewish people were sinful. But again, none of this is what we're describing as as it's been changed to sinfulness, as in a morality or an evilness or anything like that. Jesus flips that definition, and I keep repeating that because I want you to hold on to that message. In the Gospel of John, sinfulness, just like sinfulness, has nothing really to do with one's morality. Just like eternal life isn't about a later on time, but in a now time. So what Jesus is presenting to the man who was born blind is he can now see in a new way, and all of a sudden knows who Jesus is. So his eyes are literally open to know that here is God standing in front of them in the form of Christ Jesus, or just Jesus, I should say, and his eyes are now wide open. Where the Pharisees continue to disbelieve, continue to refuse to see that Jesus is God here on earth, and therefore stay in their blindness or stay in their darkness. And this is the running theme within John: blindness and light, or I should say light and darkness, night and day. All of these are deeply connected. So we get another one of those, and if you notice, there was even an I am thrown in there. Are you the man? I am. But this time said by the blind man, so that was a little nugget of trivia. But we're now starting to ramp forward towards Jerusalem. It's gonna get worse and worse. And as we move towards closer and closer to Jerusalem, the trial will kind of ramp up as well until it's the false trial before Pilate. And so this is just going to get more and more questioning. We're going to get to Lazarus, and people are going to try to kill him because they can't deal with the fact. And then we get to the night before Passover fairly quickly in the Gospel of John. So I'm just kind of giving you an overview of where we're heading. And then it's going to be a lot of chapters, I think 14 through 17, of Jesus's final teaching. So to give you an idea of where we're going to go, is we're going to look at chapter by chapter until we get to, I think, I should just look right until 14, which is the beginning of the final teaching of Jesus. And then we're going to, chapter 14. Sorry, that's what I was looking at. And then we're going to jump, and we're going to do 14 essentially through 17 all in one video, because it's one giant teaching, and it's important to know that. And so that's where we're kind of heading. So we're going to go chapter, big chunk, chapter. And so just letting you know, to give you a future reference of what the next couple of classes are going to look like. So next week we will jump into chapter 10, and then do 4 more lessons after that, and then a big chunk, and then we'll close it out. So I hope you have been enjoying these classes. If you have any questions or any thoughts, feel free to either put them in the chat. I notice YouTube's comment section is closed. I don't know why. I don't understand it that much, but Facebook's is open. So if you want to, please place it in the bottom of Facebook, or just write to me or chat with me, and I'll either include it in the next video or talk to you directly. So take care, everybody. Enjoy.